70,000 years ago, in the warm cradle of East Africa, she lived among tall grasses and winding rivers, where the air smelled of wet earth after rain and the nights echoed with the distant roar of lions. Her world was alive with birdsong, insects humming, and the soft murmur of her people gathered around firelight. But the rains began to fail, seasons shifted, rivers thinned, herds wandered farther each year, and hunger pressed close. She followed the animals, the water, the promise of survival, not knowing she was walking toward the edge of the world she knew. She reached the Red Sea when it was narrow and low, a shimmering strait where land almost touched land. Salt hung in the air and waves slapped against dark volcanic rock. Behind her, Africa grew harsher. Ahead, she saw birds flying toward the opposite shore. She followed them. The crossing was terrifying, rafts of reeds and driftwood, anything that floated, but she reached Arabia. Here, her daughters became the mothers of Haplogroup N, the lineage that would populate the world. They lived along the southern coast for thousands of years, gathering shellfish, following tides, and breathing the warm, humid air of a new land. Farther inland lay Wadi Shrouded, a green valley in western Yemen that is desert today. 50,000 years ago, it was lush, a ribbon of life where water flowed year-round. Her descendants smelled damp soil and wild herbs, heard children splashing in shallow streams, and watched men hunt gazelle in the hills. This valley became home for 10,000 years or more. Generations lived and died here, stories deepened, tools improved. But slowly the rains retreated, the river shrank. The valley browned at the edges. Once again, the world pushed her daughters north. They crossed the Arabian Peninsula, a land of dunes, oases, and endless sky. The wind carried the taste of dust. Nights were cold and star-filled. Days were harsh and bright. They reached the Levant, where snow-tipped mountains rose above fertile valleys. Here they hunted gazelle, gathered wild barley, and carved flint tools. In this land of shifting climates and new opportunities, Haplogroup X was born. Her descendants lived in small bands, moving with the seasons, learning the rhythms of a new world. As the Ice Age tightened its grip, her lineage moved into Anatolia, where forests of oak and pine offered refuge. They lived in caves and rock shelters, smelling wood smoke and damp stone. They hunted red deer and wild cattle, gathered nuts beneath ancient trees. Here in this cold refuge, Haplogroup X2 emerged, the branch that would one day lead to us. They stayed for thousands of years, sheltered from the worst of the glacial cold. When the world warmed again, ice melted and rivers swelled. Her descendants moved east into the Zagros Mountains of Iran, a land of rolling hills, wild wheat, and goats. Here they built the first permanent homes. They ground grain on stone slabs, stored food for winter, and raised children who never knew a nomadic life. This was the dawn of farming, the first time her lineage truly settled. Smoke curled from hearths, dogs barked in early villages, and the smell of baking grain drifted through the air. From Iran, they moved into the northern arc of the Fertile Crescent, a land of rivers, fertile plains, and early villages. Here, the world transformed. Her story begins in the northern Fertile Crescent, where the air smelled of damp earth and crushed wild wheat. The mornings were cool, the kind of cool that carries the scent of river reeds and the smoke of early hearth fires. She grew up in a world of stone and wind, where gazelles moved like shadows across the plains, and vultures circled high above the limestone plateaus. This was the land of the first ritual sites, Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, places where her ancestors carved meaning into stone long before they carved homes into earth. Pottery dried in the sun, trade routes formed, communities grew, rituals deepened. The first towns rose from the earth. She smelled clay and grain, heard the murmur of marketplaces, and saw fields of wheat bending in the wind. The wetlands that fed her people were shrinking. The river that once carved life through the plain began to wander, then fade. The soil grew tired, the harvest grew thin, and she felt it, the quiet fear that spreads through a village when the earth stops giving. It didn't happen in a single day. It happened in whispers, a dry season that lasted too long, a well that didn't refill, a field that failed twice in a row, a child coughing from dust storms that hadn't existed a generation before. The elders argued, the hunters returned empty-handed, the farmers watched their crops wither. Slowly, painfully, the truth settled over them. The city that had once been a miracle was becoming a memory. And so, with heavy hearts and quiet courage, families began to leave. Some went west, some went north, some stayed behind, hoping the rains would return. Origin Mother turned her face south, toward the Levant, toward the old lands of her ancestors, toward the long road that would eventually lead her back into Africa. She walked with others, families carrying baskets, tools, memories, and the hope of a better life. They followed river valleys, trade paths, and ancient routes carved by generations before them. They passed through the Taurus Mountains, the Jordan Valley, the shadow of Mount Carmel, and the familiar stones of the Levant. These were lands her ancestors had known thousands of years earlier. She was not returning to a strange place. She was returning to an echo, and as she walked, she carried with her the resilience of the Natufian bloodline and the strength of the basal Eurasian mothers before her. She was a bridge between worlds. Eventually, her journey brought her to the edge of Sinai, a land of wind-carved stone and ancient paths. Crossing it was not easy, but she crossed. And when she stepped into the Nile Valley, she stepped into Africa again, the land her ancestors had left tens of thousands of years before. This was the rare re-entry my story reveals. She did not know she was completing a circle. She only knew she was seeking water, land, and life, and she found them in the green floodplains of the Nile, in the early villages of the Fayum, in the communities that would one day become Egypt. She brought with her the skills of farming, the traditions of her people, the strength of her lineage, and Africa welcomed her home. And this is where the first migration story ends, here in the green floodplains of the Nile, after a journey that began tens of thousands of years earlier. Here, where our origin mothers returned to the land their ancestors once left. Here, where they planted new roots, raised new generations, and helped shape the earliest communities that would one day rise into Egypt. This is the end of the first great circle, the exit from Africa, the long road through the Levant and Anatolia, and the rare return home. And standing in this moment, we feel the weight of their footsteps, the strength of their choices, and the legacy they carried across continents. I searched for her for 10 years. 10 years of digging through ruins, DNA reports, migration maps, and forgotten settlements. And then one day she wasn't a theory anymore. She wasn't a name or a haplogroup, she was a woman, my origin mother, and I could finally feel the ground she walked on, the warmth of her hearth, the weight of her choices, the courage of her migration. I feel the world she built, a world of community, resilience, and quiet strength. And I know this now. I didn't just find her story, I stepped into it, and she stepped into mine.